Let us take a look at 10 such brave movements that propelled India towards independence. The Rebellion of 1857. The 1857 Mutiny was the first organized movement against the East India Company, which started as a Sepoy mutiny by a company soldier Mangal Pandey. Anchored by oppression and discrimination in the force, he shot at Lieutenant Henry Bagh, causing widespread rebellion. Rebels such as Nana Sahib, Tantia Topi and Rani Lakshmi Bai joined the movement after this. The formation of the Indian National Congress. Alan Octavian Hume, Dadabhai Naoroji and Dinshaw Wacha founded the Indian National Congress in March 1885. The party started with only 72 delegates who began negotiating terms with the British Empire and organizing movements. By the end of the freedom movement, it had a strong 15 million member crew. The Partition of Bengal. The Viceroy of India, Lord Curzon, announced the decision to divide Bengal in July 1905 between Muslim majority areas in the east and Hindu majority areas in the west. The vicious divide and rule play behind the partition made Indians protest against the government, which led to Bengal's reunion in 1911 to appease the population, but it was parted again in 1947. The arrival of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi entered India from South Africa in 1915 and started organizing peasants and laborers to protest against oppressive colonial laws such as the land tax and color-specific rules. After joining the Congress Party in 1921, Gandhi led nationwide movements against the British Empire, preached against non-violence, championed women's rights, protested against untouchability, and mitigated terms between various religious communities. The Jallianwala Bagh Genocide. On April 13, 1919, the day of Baisakhi, Colonel Reginald Dyer instructed over 90 British Indian Army soldiers to open fire at a peaceful crowd. Over 20,000 unarmed men, women and children were trapped in the Jallianwala Bagh ground and died from stampedes or by jumping into the solitary well on the ground. Upon inquiry, Dyer declared that the shooting was a necessary measure not to disperse the crowd but to punish the Indians for disobedience. This gave rise to rebels such as Bhagat Singh and unmasked the enlightened colonizers, and also made Rabindranath Tagore reject his knighthood in protest. The Khilafat Movement. Enraged Indian Muslims and those from around the world were insulted after the World War I overthrowing of the Islamic Caliphate by the British. They launched campaigns against them in protest, which continued from 1919 to 1924. The movement, the Khilafat movement, got a political tone when Congress joined hands with the Muslim League to fight against the colonizers. The Delhi Assembly bombing. In 1929, Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt, faces of youth resistance, threw political handouts and smoke bombs at the Delhi Central Legislative Assembly in rebellion and to ask for legal trial against the British government. The Civil Disobedience Movement and the Dandi March. Mahatma Gandhi started the civil disobedience movement where civilians would refuse to follow certain laws formed by the British government. The movement had two phases, from 1921 to 24 and from 1930 to 31. The first phase coincided with the non-cooperation movement, while the second phase saw Gandhi launch the Salt Satyagraha or the Dandi March to make salt against the British law. The Azad Hind Fauj. The Indian National Army or the Azad Hind Fauj was formed by Indian nationalists under Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's leadership in 1942. During World War II, it was done with the aim of securing independence from the British rule. The Fauj raised arms against the British Empire, but the movement faded due to lack of support and sustenance. The Quit India Movement. In August 1942, Mahatma Gandhi called for an orderly British withdrawal from India, following which Indian freedom fighters declared an all-out disobedience against the British government and demanded them to quit India. The Quit India movement, or the Bharat Chhoro Andolan, also known as the August Kranti, was the final nail in the coffin for the British in India. It's been 70 years since our independence. But are we really free? Freedom, true freedom, is the emancipation of the mind. As Rabindranath Tagore says in his Nobel Prize winning Gitanjali, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. My Father, let my country awake.